You're not chasing joy, you're avoiding responsibility. If your happiness disappears easily, maybe it was never real. Discipline doesn't feel good, but that's where real joy begins. We're conditioned to treat happiness like weather, passive, external, unpredictable. But the Stoics saw it differently. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for life to ease up before he found peace. He wrote his meditations in the midst of war, loss, and disease. Because happiness, to him, wasn't something you wait for, it was something you build. Not with comfort, but with discipline. Real joy is forged in the moments you least want to try, when the alarm rings too early, when the news unsettles you, when the day starts heavy, and you choose to act with clarity anyway. That's not fake positivity, that's strength. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, and often what we call unhappiness is really just our resistance to responsibility. So the next time you feel low, don't reach for more comfort, reach for better habits. Ask yourself, did I align my actions with who I want to be today? Because joy doesn't come from the outside, it comes from self-respect, from choosing what's hard but right. Share your experience in the comments. How have you practiced joy when it felt hardest? We think we need to feel ready, calm, motivated, confident before we move. But the Stoics teach the opposite. Don't wait for the feeling. Let the feeling follow your movement. Epictetus put it simply. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. It sounds backward, but it works. You don't act because you're inspired. You act, and that act becomes the seed of new energy. Think of the mornings you didn't want to get out of bed, but you did. Within 5 minutes of motion, the weight began to lift. Not because the world changed, but because you changed direction. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between emotion and motion. It just reacts to rhythm. If you stay still, it spirals. If you move, it stabilizes. This is where most people get stuck. They wait for momentum instead of generating it. The result? Days pass, dreams stall, and resentment grows. But when you build a habit of acting, especially when it's inconvenient, you start to rewire your identity. You go from, I feel stuck, to I'm the kind of person who moves anyway. And from there, everything else shifts. Your mindset, your focus, your sense of control. So if you're tired of feeling off, start small. One push-up, one paragraph, one deep breath. Just move and let the emotion follow. Once you learn to move despite how you feel, the next battle begins mastering how you think. Because thought, like motion, is habit. And most people never question theirs. They accept every anxious narrative, every inner criticism, as truth instead of training their mind to serve them, not sabotage them. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly to himself, not for performance, but for clarity. He was emperor of Rome, yet still asked daily, is this thought helping me live well or harming me? That question is everything. Because each thought you choose to entertain is a seed, and seeds grow. If you water fear, don't be surprised when anxiety blooms. If you feed self-pity, don't expect resilience. But if you plant discipline, if you nurture clarity and courage, your internal landscape begins to change. Mental training isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about catching the spiral before it pulls you under. You think, I'm failing. Pause. Ask, is this true or just familiar? Then choose a stronger thought, not fake, but firm. I've failed before, and I'm still standing. That's how you train the mind, not with one big epiphany, but with small, repeated choices to think better. Thought by thought, you build a mind that works with you, not against you. But even when you've learned to shape your thoughts, there's one trap still waiting. The voice that says, "You were hurt, so you're broken." But you are not your wounds. You're the one who decides what they mean. Pain is real, but so is your power to respond. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, choose not to be harmed and you won't be. Not because harm never came, but because he refused to hand over the pen. He knew, you can't edit the past, but you can stop letting it write your present. There's dignity in saying, yes, this happened, but it doesn't get to define me. Too many people turn a chapter into the whole story. They replay betrayal, loss, shame, until it becomes identity. That's not healing, that's surrender. You're not here to be a permanent victim. You're here to become the narrator again. So rewrite it. Don't lie about what happened. Just tell the truth with strength. What did it teach you? What part of you survived? What part of you grew sharper, softer, wiser? Because the story you tell yourself isn't just memory, it becomes momentum. Pause here. What story have you been living in? And what would happen if you changed it? And once you've reclaimed the story, you have to guard the narrator. Because not every thought is truth. Not every inner voice deserves your trust. The mind speaks often, but it doesn't always speak wisely. You've been conditioned to believe your thoughts are you, but they're not. They're habits, echoes, old fears dressed as reason. This is where most people get trapped again, not in the past, but in the present loops they never question. You think, I'm not good enough. They're judging me. I always mess things up. But have you ever paused and simply asked, is this actually true? Is this thought helping me or harming me? That small pause, that moment of awareness, is where freedom begins. Epictetus taught, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Which means you can't always choose what arises in your mind, but you can choose which thought to entertain, which belief to strengthen, which story to water. Your mind is like a garden. Every thought is a seed, and not everything that grows deserves to stay. So the next time a familiar fear or self-doubt appears, don't obey it. Interview it. Examine it. And if it lies, let it go. Because you can't master your life until you master your inner dialogue. But even after you've learned to question your thoughts, the real transformation doesn't come from insight alone. It comes from repetition, from what you do every day, especially when no one's watching. A single thought might open the door, but only habit keeps it open. This is where identity is formed. Not in one grand moment of clarity, but in the quiet repetition of small choices. A one-line journal entry at sunrise. 5 minutes of stretching when your body says stay in bed. Drinking a glass of water before the coffee. These seem insignificant until they're not. Because each time you follow through, even when you don't feel like it, you're telling your mind, this is who I am now. You're carving a new groove in the brain, and over time those grooves become your compass. Not because you chased motivation, but because you practice consistency. Marcus Aurelius wrote not to impress others, but to remind himself daily of what mattered. He understood you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. So don't underestimate the tiny rituals. Done with intention, they quietly become the architecture of your inner strength. Not flashy, not loud, but reliable and real. Because eventually, the person you become is just the result of what you've rehearsed. But what happens when even the smallest habits feel heavy? When the glass of water, the one sentence, the quiet breath, all feel meaningless? That's when the training begins. Because real strength, the kind that endures, isn't built on good days. It's forged in resistance. When your body aches, when your mind spirals, when the easiest choice is to give up and you don't. You don't need to move fast. You just need to move at all. The Stoics didn't wait for comfort to live with discipline. They expected discomfort and prepared for it like a warrior sharpens his blade. If you are distressed by anything external, Marcus wrote, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke at any moment. That power is not a feeling, it's a decision. So when the day feels impossible, when your thoughts turn foggy, when your habits wobble, remember, this moment matters more than the easy ones, because this is where identity is tested and strengthened. The days you want to skip are the ones that shape you. Show up anyway. That's why the hardest days matter most. Not because they feel good, but because they reveal whether you're fueled by discipline or just chasing a mood. Motivation is loud. It flares up in the beginning full of energy, full of promise, then disappears at the first sign of resistance. Discipline is quieter. You've probably felt the difference. One day you wake up excited, you write, stretch, show up fully. The next, that spark is gone and everything feels heavier. If you rely on motivation alone, those days break your rhythm. But if you've trained discipline, you move anyway. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not what you feel like doing, but what your values demand. That's discipline. It's not heroic, it's not glamorous, but it's repeatable. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. So if today feels dull, heavy, uninspired, good, this is where you choose. Not what to feel, but who to become. Discipline teaches you to move without waiting. But there's another layer most people never reach. Learning to love the hard days. Not tolerate love. Because if you only welcome the days when everything flows, when the sky is clear and your mind is light, then half of life will feel like punishment. But life by nature is mixed. It comes with weight, it comes with weather, and trying to resist the storm only makes it last longer. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He didn't wish for easier days. He reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. And so, he faced hardship without complaint because he knew discomfort wasn't the enemy. Avoidance was. Think about it. The days when you're exhausted, you may not feel growth in real time, but your character is being carved, quietly, persistently. So don't reject the heaviness. Don't wish it away. Let it teach you something the good days never could, how to keep your center when nothing outside supports you. That's not weakness. That's self-mastery. And that version of you is being built today. And in those heavy moments when you feel like you're failing, falling behind, or simply worn out, there's one form of strength that's often overlooked. Kindness to yourself. Not the sugary kind of self-talk, Not empty affirmation, but a steady, disciplined decision to care for the parts of you that are tired, wounded, or uncertain without judgment. That's not weakness. That's courage in its most grounded form. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is content with himself, not because he's perfect, but because he understands self-hatred is wasted energy." You can hold yourself accountable and still be compassionate. You can push for growth without crushing your spirit. Have you ever noticed how harsh you can be toward yourself for simply struggling? You'd never speak that way to a friend. And yet, we treat our own inner life like a battlefield. True Stoicism isn't about becoming emotionally numb. It's about building the inner strength to stay calm and gentle, even when you're disappointed in yourself. That means resting when you need to, forgiving when you fall short, speaking with clarity, not cruelty to your own thoughts. Because the person you'll live with the longest is you. So make that relationship a strong one. The moment you begin treating yourself with true kindness is the moment you realize something deeper. Your peace is yours to protect, not anyone else's to manage. It's easy to forget that. We let other people's moods dictate our own. One harsh word, one passive-aggressive message, one careless comment, and suddenly our entire day unravels. But when you give others that much control, you've already lost the battle. Epictetus said it plainly, "No one can disturb your peace unless you allow it." That's not a metaphor. It's a discipline, one you must practice daily. It means stepping back from arguments that go nowhere, choosing silence over spiraling, saying no. Peace isn't something you find. It's something you build decision by decision, boundary by boundary. And if you keep outsourcing it, waiting for others to be less dramatic, less reactive, more understanding, you'll wait forever. So ask yourself, who or what holds too much power over your emotions right now? Then remember, you don't have to explain your calm. You only have to guard it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. Once you take ownership of your peace, you'll have to defend it. And that begins with something deeply misunderstood: boundaries. Not walls, not punishment, but quiet lines of clarity drawn not to push people away, but to protect what keeps you sane. The Stoics didn't live in monasteries. They walked through crowds, politics, tension, noise. Yet they stayed inwardly calm because they knew where they ended and where the world began. A boundary isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Still, you'll notice something uncomfortable. The moment you begin setting healthy limits, some people will push back. Not because your boundary is wrong, but because your absence of boundaries used to benefit them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, that tranquility, it starts with drawing the line. You're not selfish for needing space. You're not cold for stepping away from chaos. You're simply choosing not to trade your mental clarity for momentary approval." Ask yourself, what part of you is being eroded by someone else's access? Then take it back, not with rage, but with resolve. Because a strong boundary is a quiet act of self-respect. Once you've drawn the lines that protect your peace, you'll begin to notice something else. How much noise still slips through? The overpacked schedule, the endless tabs, the pressure to do, to prove, to chase. And yet for what? Simplicity isn't minimalism for aesthetics. It's alignment for survival. The Stoics lived by this. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's not just moral advice, it's a philosophy of clarity. To live simply is to live right, not by doing nothing, but by doing what truly matters. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. You don't need more goals. You need better priorities. Think of it this way. What if you stopped trying to be everywhere and chose to be fully present somewhere? What if instead of juggling 10 things at once, you focused on one thing deeply, honestly, completely? Simplicity isn't lack, it's strength, edited. And in a world drowning in options, the person who dares to live simply often lives most fully. When life becomes simpler, it also becomes clearer, and in that clarity, something surprising happens. The world will keep whispering. You'll be happy when you earn more, when you look different, when you're seen, followed, praised. But ask yourself, have those things ever truly lasted? The Stoics warned us early. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the one who craves more, who is poor." Because joy doesn't come from accumulation, it comes from alignment, from doing what you say you value, from speaking what you believe, from showing up in ways that feel honest, not impressive. Think of someone you admire not for their wealth, but for their calm. Chances are their power comes from this. Their life matches their principles. And that's what makes them feel enough. So if you've been chasing joy through more pause, look inward. Ask, am I living in sync with what I claim to care about? If the answer is yes, even just a little, you're already wealthier than most. When joy no longer depends on having more, something deeper begins to unfold. Not just moments of happiness, but a steady sense of wholeness. It happens when your outer life stops pretending and finally aligns with who you really are. The Stoics never chased some grand idea of happiness. To them, happiness was simply this: living in agreement with nature, your true nature. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, be successful. He said, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Why? Because integrity, the match between who you are and how you act, is where peace lives. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to stop betraying your own voice, day after day. Think of how heavy it feels to wear a mask to smile while you're exhausted, to say yes when everything in you says no. That weight, it's the cost of misalignment. But when you start showing up honestly, even in small ways, the tension eases, the noise softens, you come home to yourself. So no, you don't need to chase happiness. You just need to return truthfully, gently to who you've been all along. When you've spent the day living in alignment, don't let it end in noise. Modern life rarely teaches us how to close the day. We scroll, we worry, we replay what went wrong. We lie in bed with minds still racing, wondering why rest never feels restful. But the Stoics knew the final minutes of your day matter. Epictetus encouraged reflection each night, not to judge, but to grow. What did I do well? What can I do better? Did I live according to my values? But there's one thing we must add in today's world: gratitude. Not forced, not exaggerated, just simple noticing. A quiet thank you whispered to yourself. I stayed calm in that meeting. I made someone smile, and I breathed through the stress instead of snapping. These moments, they're small, but they're evidence. Proof that even on hard days, you didn't give up on yourself. Gratitude helps you see the whole picture, not just the flaws. It calms the nervous system. It clears the emotional clutter. And most importantly, it lets you rest with dignity. So tonight, before your head hits the pillow, ask, what can I still be thankful for even now? Let that be your final thought. Not perfection, but peace. You don't arrive at happiness. You return to it through rhythm. Every morning, you begin with intention. Every night, you close with gratitude. Then you repeat, not perfectly, but consciously. This is not a one-time breakthrough. It's not a single act of willpower. It's a lifestyle, quiet, intentional, daily. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for happiness. He practiced it in how he thought, how he rose each morning, how he let go each night. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." So ask yourself, not, am I happy yet? But am I living like someone who honors what matters? Because the truth is simple. Happiness isn't found. It's cultivated in how you think, in how you act, in what you choose again and again, especially when it's hard. You've made it this far, and that says everything. With intention in the morning, gratitude at night, and calm strength in between. If this message grounded you, leave a word in the comments. It doesn't have to be long, just honest. And if you'd like to keep building this inner life, subscribe, like, stay with us. The Stoic Room is always open. Stay calm, stay grounded, stay unshaken, no matter the storm. Or simply, you'll be okay.